about eating late at night. It's going to be a lot of fun. I really like this live stream. I actually read an article from the 𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂, that Harvard doctor that I always follow. His newsletter this morning came in, and he talked about these 2 studies that came out about eating late at night, and I really love the article. Oh, thanks, my dearly beloved just poured me some water, which is great. So I decided to do a live stream. I know I went live Friday night, talking about bicep training, but I want to go live every single Sunday. Not too many people showed up for the Friday night live stream. I know Chris was there and a couple of other people, which I really appreciate. So I'm going to stick to this Sunday morning schedule, 11:30. But I really like the information in these 2 studies today, so I'm really looking forward to going over all the content here. And I'm assuming everything is good. I hope the sound's good. Everything else is good. Once again, I had a little bit of a difficulty getting the sound to work properly today, so that's great. Oh, yeah, hey, Chris is here at Dynamite. Good morning, Mike. I'm so excited to be here and to learn from you. The sound is great. Everything is perfect. Oh, fantastic. Thanks a lot. This is going to be a lot of fun. Actually, I even like the thumbnail. I'm going to start using myself less in my thumbnails and go with some other people. Hey, Patel, thanks for showing up. Everything. Good evening, Mike, and everyone. That's great. So I guess different time zones, which is so exciting for me. People from all over the world. Hey, Harriet, thanks for showing up. This is great. All right, let's get into it. So what I'll map the whole thing out. Now that's the wrong camera. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at and review 2 different studies. And I really like the studies, and I've been feeling this way for a while now. There's even some multiple other studies that I could have pulled in, but we're going to limit it to this 2. And I even pulled some graphics out of the 𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂 newsletter. It's a free newsletter too. You guys should all sign up. It's called the Drive 𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂. It's a great newsletter. Comes every Sunday. Plus, there's a podcast, averaging about 1 to 2 episodes per week, which is great. Him and Andrew Huberman, the Huberman Labs, those are my 2 favorite podcasts. I learned so much from them, which is great. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to review 2 recent studies, and these are randomized control studies, that found that eating towards the end of the day, dramatically, significantly, increase your appetite. It also can reduce energy expenditure, like your metabolism can slow down if you're eating late at night. Not both studies showed that, but one study did. So these are really good studies, and they're really easy to understand. I'm going to map the whole thing out for you. I hope I don't bore you with it. And then at the end, we'll just go over my favorite eating schedule, like what I've switched myself over to, and what I have most of my clients at my gym using now. And everyone's really enjoying it. And I'll even preface it by saying that even if that schedule doesn't work, there's also some other things you can do, some other hacks you can do, just to stop yourself from eating late at night or pretty much right before you go to sleep. Because that's what'll really get you. And I think Nicholas is here too. I think I see that. Hey, I think I see your comment coming in on the phone, but it doesn't have your normal logo. So thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. All right, let's jump into it. Let's go over this first study. Once again, ask all your questions. And also at the end of the live stream, I'm always going to pull in a couple of meals. I think I have 4 or 5 meals of how I've been eating this week, which I always like to do that too. Okay, so let's go over study number 1. Okay, this was the first study. They took and this is the person who 𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙃. I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly, but he's the guy, and his team actually did this study. And what they did is they took 16 individuals. They were classified as being overweight, obese subjects, and they were randomized to either eating early or late eating schedule. And I took this picture, and this is actually from the 𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙃 newsletter, so let me blow it up a little bit for you. So for example, both groups ate 3 meals a day. One group though started eating earlier in the day. One group started eating, maybe 9 o'clock, and they had another meal at maybe 1:30, and then they had dinner relatively early, right before 6 p.m. And how they did it, I'll explain it a little bit better in this next slide, and exactly how they did it, but they pretty much did this for a few days, 4 days. Then they kind of took 3-4 weeks off just to have a baseline, and then they took the same group of people and they did it again. So it was a good study. It was a good comparison. Whereas the other group skipped breakfast, had their first meal say 1:30, their second meal at 5, 6, and they had their last meal pretty late at night, so around 9:30 in the evening. Okay, and this is the actual study, and this is a good place to look for studies: cell metabolism I always hear like the top PhDs always talking about it. And these were some of the highlights of this study we can just look at quickly. Late eating increased wake time hunger and decreased 24-hour serum leptin. We're going to talk about what leptin is. Leptin is the hormone that tells you that you're full. So when leptin is elevated, which is a good thing, it'll actually make you less hungry. It gives you that full feeling. It's so funny. I may have talked about this before. One time I did a video on leptin a while ago, maybe 3-4 years ago. I don't know what was going on with my brain. You know, maybe I didn't have my coffee that day. I was like mumbling my words, and I had this like, maybe some like dyslexia. I had this misassociation. I kept on, instead of saying leptin, I kept on saying Lipton, like Lipton tea. I don't know what was going on with me. And actually a professor left a comment. He was a nice guy, but he said, you know, Mike, you seem like a nice guy, and I actually liked your presentation, your explanation of leptin, but you can call it a tea. You got to get the names right. So I'm always messing up my words, but I never forget that whenever I see leptin. Let's see what Chris says. Oh, sound is great on Facebook too. Good. Yeah, once again, guys, I'm also using, I think I figured out how to use Restream, that software, properly. So right now I'm broadcasting on YouTube. I'm in Facebook on my 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃 fitness page. I'm also on Facebook on the time restricted eating, my free group that talks about intermittent fasting. But if you follow me, you're going to get it all, right? And then I'm also on my low carb intermittent fasting course page. I also think I'm on LinkedIn on the 𝘾𝙊𝘾 Fitness, have everything worked out smoothly. Okay, and then some other highlights from this study is late eating decreased wake time, energy expenditure. That means, for example, it actually slowed your metabolism down, which is crazy, you know, and reduced like core temperature when you're eating late at night, you know. So late night eating alters adipose tissue gene expression, having increased lipid storage, meaning that it makes you more, you can easily store body fat and not release fat from the fat cell to be burned up when you're eating late at night, which is unreal. And these changes upon late eating may increase obesity risk. You know, they're trying to say, you're going to see there was no change in weight, but well, you'll see when I break the study down a little bit more. So this was the difference between the two strategies. It was pretty much, some people, one group ate breakfast, a group did not eat breakfast, and they had a very late dinner. So that's the big difference. And I'll just break the study down a little bit more so you really understand it. This was only a 4-day study, so a relatively small study. The cool thing about it is they ate the same exact menu, same exact calories. So not like one group ate more, the other group ate less. They both ate the same amount of calories. Like the washout period, like I said, was anywhere between 3 to 12 weeks, and they switched, okay? And they measured energy expenditure and that leptin. So leptin is the hormone that sends the signals to the brain that tells you you're full. It's interesting. Leptin is actually released from body fat, adipose tissue. Like for example, if it's cool how the body works. If you're overweight and you start gaining weight, your fat cells will start releasing leptin to tell your brain, slow down, stop eating. Unfortunately, though, with leptin, similar to like insulin, you know, insulin's that storage hormone. If you've been overweight for decades, you know, you become insulin resistant, meaning that your cells are not responding to insulin. That's why you get high blood sugar and possibly type 2 diabetes, all that. There's a similar scenario with leptin. Some people do become leptin resistant, meaning that those fat cells are releasing leptin, but the brain is just not recognizing that signal, like it doesn't realize. So some people, like years ago, there were even studies done like to help people control their weight, saying that, you know, just inject leptin into people and that's going to make them eat less. And it turned out that it didn't work because people at that point, most likely if you're insulin resistant, most likely you're leptin resistant as well. It goes hand in hand. You know, it's a little debatable, but that's my feeling on it. Okay, so let's talk about the results of the study. I kind of briefly went through it with the highlights. I don't want to bore you too much with the studies, unless you guys are really, and guys and gals are really enjoying this and really into it. We can go as deep as you want. Okay, these were the results of the study. Eating late at night resulted in, this is the main thing, significant increases in hunger, which is, like we talked about, which is really interesting. So just think, if you eat right before bed, you're going to wake up the next day, you're going to be hungry. Whereas if you took your calories in early in the day, you're going to be less hungry. Now, this is interesting. They also said there was no change in weight, which you would think, like, well, why wouldn't the group who was more hungry, right, who was eating late at night, not gain weight? And the researchers made a note because they were restricting calories, meaning that even the people who were hungry, it was only a 4-day study, couldn't go grab some more calories because they weren't allowed to. It was really a controlled study. But they were, if you read like the whole study, which I did, they felt that if they were able to eat more calories, the hungry group probably would have, especially if the study was longer. There most likely would have been a change in weight, meaning that the people who ate late at night would most likely be heavier than the group who ate earlier in the day. Okay, and once again, leptin concentrations were higher in the early eating group, meaning that the people who ate breakfast and took their calories early, who didn't eat right before they went to sleep, had higher levels of the leptin during the day, which kept them eating, like not being as hungry. They felt fuller during the day, which is really cool. And this is interesting. Lipolysis, I know that could be confusing, the terms, decrease in lipolysis, meaning that it was harder for the group who ate late at night for fat to be released from the fat cells to be burned up and oxidized and used. And it was easier for the group who ate late at night to store away body fat. So it's like the worst scenario you possibly could want. Harder to burn fat, right? Easier to store it if you're eating late at night, which is really cool. Let's see what Chris says. Okay. I'm really interested in this content. I used to be type 2 diabetic and used to be insulin resistant. I know, Chris, I'm so happy. You've really turned things around. I'm proud of you. So exciting. I love hearing stories like this. Chris is really, he pretty much does everything that I love. He's following an ideal diet. He's doing everything right, and it's really, really working. So that's so exciting to hear that. Okay. And this is the other thing, decreased time in energy expenditure, meaning that the group who ate late at night also had a slower metabolism the next day. So like the worst possible scenario, this is a really good study that broke it down, done really well in a controlled environment, saying that you really shouldn't be eating like 3 hours or so, if not longer, before going to sleep at night. That's why you're going to see at the end of this presentation. That's kind of why I really have switched myself into most new people who start working with me. If you can do it, you're better off doing more of that early time restricted eating. For sure. It doesn't have to be 8 in the morning, but like taking in your calories starting at maybe 10 o'clock, being done by 6, or even 11 and 7. You want that 3 hours before going to sleep, without any food in your system. So you don't get situations like this. So you're not hungry the next day, so your leptin levels are high. Leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin's also the the hunger hormone as well too. The study went into ghrelin as well. Ghrelin, similar to leptin, will tell you to increase or decrease hunger. So the worst thing you can have is low leptin, high ghrelin. That's like a formula for you to gain weight. You're going to be ravenously hungry all the time. Okay. I have a few questions. Oh, sure, Chris. Ask your questions anytime. I can't wait to answer them for you. Okay, so we're still on study number 2. Okay, that was the results, right? That was the results of study number 1. So let's go into study number 2, which is somewhat similar. It's just that it's nice that we had that we have 2 studies. Okay, let's see what Nicholas has to say. Hey, I did eating during the night, but in the morning I felt significantly heavier. Yeah, that could be a number of things, Nicholas. It could be that maybe you had a little sodium late at night, you had a little water. Maybe you ate a little bit of carbs at night, so you filled your muscle with glycogen. But if you can avoid it, that late night eating, there's nothing really good about it. I know for years though, when I was really into bodybuilding and I used to train these bodybuilders, this is maybe over 30 years ago, bodybuilders would wake up in the middle of the night and have a protein shake, or have a protein shake right before their bed. Because the thought process, at least back then, was you wanted to take in protein every 3 hours, because you really can't store protein, you really can't store amino acids, even though there is an amino acid pool and all that, where you can always pull aminos from, that you want to constantly have protein running through your bloodstream, and you always want to be in a growth phase, which has really been somewhat disproven. I mean, as long as 3 meals a day, if you're taking an adequate amount of protein, digestion is generally slowed down. So that's something that I wouldn't do, But I can see why. And sometimes I still get questions answered, and people asking me questions like that. Should I do a protein shake before I go to sleep? Well, definitely based on these 2 studies, you definitely shouldn't. You should give yourself at least 3 hours, an absolute minimum of 2 hours before you go to bed at night. No food in your system. And I think they didn't talk about it too much in these studies, but that also has to do with that circadian rhythm. Your 24-hour internal clock, which controls every processing in the body. Eating late at night just throws off your circadian rhythm as well. Let's see what Biff has to say. Hey, Biff, thanks for showing up. Okay. How do you recommend someone structure their intermittent fasting who works overnight? I know that's a tough one. I'm in healthcare and work 12-hour night shifts. It's tricky to negative. I know the night work it is really, really difficult. I have to say, first off, everything being said about the early time restricted eating, I still think if it just doesn't work into your schedule, you will do incredibly well just doing like a 16-8 or an 18-6, and in any time schedule. The fact that you're really working at night, and you've probably been doing it for an extended period of time, that is your circadian rhythm. Even though sunlight, like sunrise and sunset, does set your circadian rhythm, but if you've been doing this night shift work and that's just your life, your body is going to adjust to it. So I literally, Biff, would just go with just an 8-hour eating window, a 6-hour eating window that fits into your schedule. I'm assuming you don't want to bring all your food at work, and just do the best you can. You're still gonna do well. I still love these fasting strategies for keeping calories under control and for being in a fasted state for all the health benefits, like low insulin levels and increasing insulin sensitivity, just being a 16-hour fast. I would just do whatever fits into your schedule. And like I said, me and my wife, we started this like 12 years ago, this intermittent fasting. I skipped breakfast for a decade, and I think I did great. I had low body fat levels, I had good energy, but I have to say, eating a little bit early now, especially taking in protein around 10 in the morning, even if it's just a protein shake or a protein bar, I think I do feel a little bit better. And it was hard for me. Sometimes I used to eat late at night. Like I would do an 18-6, I do a 24 where I'd fast for 20 hours, break my fast at 4 o'clock and do like a Nomad plus a protein shake type of a thing. And it worked well for me, but I do think, based on all the new research, if you follow any of the YouTubers who there are some YouTubers who only talk about intermittent fasting or time restricted eating, like that's their entire channel. They've all been talking about it over the last 6 months from all the new research that everyone seems to be switching to more of an early time restricted eating schedule. Maybe it'll change, but this is what the research is leading towards, at least for now. Okay, let's see what Nick has to say. I don't know if my body likes ketosis because I eat no carbs this morning and I felt tired and lethargic. I ate an hour ago, which was 3 p.m. I had some carbs and felt better. Yeah, I don't. Nick, I mean, you're doing so good. I don't really think you have to be in ketosis. I mean, you're at your ideal weight now. Everything's working for you. I like ketosis as more of just an intermediary thing. Like I like to dip into ketosis every now and then. Maybe I'll go into ketosis for a week or two. Makes my brain feel good. I burn a little body fat. But long term, I am a believer. I think you want the fiber. 150 grams of carbs a day with vegetables and some fruit, I think is the better long-term approach. Even though some people have been in ketosis for, years, I think eventually you'll run into a little trouble. So I don't think you need that, Nicholas. Turn 5 p.m. in the UK. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's go over the exact now the second study, which is pretty similar to the first, but it was done differently. Instead of just using 16 individuals, they had 30. So it was a bigger group, right? They were overweight and considered obese. And this was interesting. How they did it here with this particular study is that they still had the people eat their 3 meals at the same time, right? Say 8 in the morning, breakfast, 12 for lunch, maybe 6 p.m. for dinner. But this time, all they did was they changed the ratio of when they ate the most amount of calories, which is really interesting. Once again, same amount of calories, pretty much same macros, protein, fats, and carbs, okay? Say one group, right, the morning load group had their biggest meal for breakfast, but had the smallest meal for dinner. Whereas the other group, meanwhile, and this is the same thing, when I say groups, I don't mean different people, right? I mean the same 30 people did this, then they had a washout period. That's what I mean by washout. That means they waited 4 weeks, created a new baseline, and then they did this again. So it's the same people, so the results are really, really accurate. What now the evening loaded group, that's why EL stands for evening loading, they took in the least amount of calories for breakfast, only 20%, same for lunch, but then dinner, they loaded up. And they took almost half the calories a day for dinner. And I find that's a really common, just from analyzing people's diets for like decades. Most people have a somewhat of a lighter breakfast, unless it was ingrained to them, breakfast is the most important meal. They have a medium lunch and they just pile in all their calories late at night, not only with dinner, but with snacking, and then they're literally eating right before they go to bed at night, which is probably the worst thing you can possibly do when it comes to like controlling your weight and things like that, backloading all your calories late at night in the evening, right? And you're not going to sleep well, it's going to affect your sleep, digestion, a whole bunch of things. Okay, and then they did similar things. They measured appetite and energy expenditure. And you know, I should have pulled it. I think I have a picture of this study too. Let me see where this one is. I think, yeah, let me make this a little bit small. This is just this study, if you want to check it out. Once again, cell metabolism, timing of daily calorie load affects appetite, hunger, without changes in metabolism. That's the interesting thing about this. When we go into the comparing the results. Oh, you know, let's look at this first. This was a chart just, I'm trying to make it like really simple, so I hope you guys are following along with me. These are the two studies just broken down in a chart, right? The first study, only 16 people. The second study, which I'm talking about now, had 30 people. The first study was only 4 days. This was 4 weeks, which is great. And the intervals between the study was 3 to 12. That means the washout period. Okay, so let's talk about the results of the second study. So just like the first study, the second study said that eating late in the day resulted in significant increases in hunger. So even though they're not like changing the times, just by taking in more calories in the evening instead of in the morning, they woke up the next day and there was significant differences in appetite, much hungrier, which is somewhat counterintuitive, because you would think if you're taking in your calories right in the evening, you should wake up in the morning, not be hungry because you only ate, 8-9 hours before. But the exact opposite. So such a contrarian way of looking at it, which is really interesting. Oh, cool, thanks. I'm glad you liked it. Okay, then the other thing is, this was kind of interesting, but it's similar to the other studies. No changes in weight. The reasons why their weight wasn't changed is because, like the researchers said, the group that was hungry when they were eating late at night or taking in more calories later in the day, even though they were more hungry, they weren't allowed to eat any more calories. So keep that in mind, because I really think the numbers, especially on a 4-week study, I think they definitely would have been a difference in weight for sure. This particular one showed no change in energy expenditure, meaning that the first group who skipped breakfast, right, their metabolism was slower than the group who ate breakfast. But this group, even though they took in calories later in the day, it didn't really affect metabolism the next day. And I just, you have to say that because it's just what the study showed. But this was the bottom line from these studies, is that snacking close to bedtime just is not a good idea, right? If you want to reduce body fat and keep it off. And there have been some other studies. So I talked about this, maybe about 6 months ago in a live stream, where I pulled in like 4 different studies, and it was pretty consistent. There's been multiple studies over the years just saying that late night eating is just not a good thing. So that's what I really want to drive home with this. And I've even made some changes myself, for sure. Okay. You're doing a great explanation. Oh, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Sometimes I get a little concerned. I like talking about these studies. And I'm not a PhD, so I'm sure a PhD would analyze these a little more in depth. Like, I don't necessarily challenge the conclusions that the researchers make. I like to read the conclusion. I even like reading just the smaller, condensed versions of these studies and get the main takeaways, because sometimes I've done some videos in the past, like really going into these studies, and I feel like I lose people. I see that my retention curve just crash when I go too deep. But I love this stuff. If you guys are interested more and more in studies, I can definitely get more and more into it. I like it. I do like it. Okay, so that's the general takeaway. Don't eat late at night, okay? Right, okay, so let's go over, and now everyone's here. And, this is my go-to diet plan that I love. Like I said, I used to always skip breakfast. I know some people can't do it. And like I said, you will still get benefit doing 16-8 between 12 and maybe 6 o'clock, or maybe 11 and 7 if you possibly can. But if you can do this and work it out, I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I posted a video on this program, just a quick 54-second video. I think I put it on the YouTube channel as well. But on TikTok, I think I'm over 250,000 views. People really loved it. But a lot of people did contact me and say, Mike, I am a shift worker, or come on, I work. How can I have my first meal at 10 o'clock? I would say first off, there's nothing wrong with just anyone could really take a protein bar with them to work, right? You need an ~Cow or one of those Quest protein bars at 10 o'clock. Get 20-25 grams of protein, only a couple hundred calories. And that could just be, that's what I do. That can kind of jumpstart your eating right there. But if you can't do that, I still think, once again, you will still get great benefits doing a more traditional 16-8, where you just skip breakfast, but just try to up that meal. Don't wait till 12, 1 o'clock. Try to have it at 11, 10:30. if you can. But ideally, this is my favorite plan for most people, long term. And you can be in a calorie deficit if you want to. You can be at maintenance calories. Even if you want to muscle up and put on muscle, I love this schedule. You know, you just have to be conscious of how many calories you're eating, right? And I do think it's something you can do long term, because you can really get good nutrition eating 2 well-balanced meals a day. It's just that you don't want to really take in more than 60 grams of protein. That's on the higher end of protein consumption for hypertrophy and things like that. That's why I like to add that protein shake. I mean, you can literally do 2 scoops of protein shake if you're a big guy, a gal, and you want, 170 grams of protein. But I think two servings of protein with those meals. I go 60 grams, 120. Then I do 1 scoop of a whey protein isolate or like a no-cal bar, and I get another 20, puts together like 150 grams to the day. So the ideal schedule for me, and I think for most people, would be a 16-8, 2MAD, 2 meals a day with a protein shake, right? You have your first meal 10 in the morning, which is great. I mean, if you can do it earlier, even the better, but then you're going to have your last meal at like 4 in the afternoon. But I like this 10 o'clock. First meal, 10 o'clock, right? Protein shake, maybe 2 in the afternoon, 1, 2 o'clock. And you can flip that too. Like I said, if you want to do your protein shake at 10 and your first meal at 1, 2 o'clock, totally fine too. Works incredibly well. But if you can be done with dinner by 6 p.m. in the evening, and that's it. No calories after 6 o'clock, so no wine after 6. No snacking on anything. You can drink your no-calorie liquids. You can drink your herbal teas if you want some decaf coffee. Nothing after 6 p.m. Now, to me, would be the ideal schedule to bring you the best results, right? And then just to make a note, if that doesn't work for you for whatever reason, and I know the night shift working, I know if that could be a little tough, but let's say you're not working the night shift, no matter what, try not to eat like much later than 7 p.m. Try to give yourself like 3 hours of just an empty stomach. You can still, stay hydrated, all that, before you go to sleep at night. Because that's more of what the other studies I was talking about that I did the live stream on about 6 months ago. I didn't really relate it to time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting, anything like that. I just looked at eating early versus eating late, and pretty much it will cross the board. Every study showed negative effects when you take in calories, more calories late at night, when it comes to controlling blood sugar and all these different hunger hormones. So if you can, I would stick to this. Let's see, I think Chris has got a question. Okay. This is Chris. I stopped making excuses and just made a meal plan that stepped up to take control of my health. I told you guys, I know you reach. It's interesting. There's always, I find for like a lot of people, especially when, I'm 60, when you get older, I'm just working with so many people. And I find everyone pretty much has like a catalyst or a trigger that sparks them into like, okay, now I'm going to do it. I just had a relatively new client. There's a guy in his 50s. He's kind of funny. He started working with me for a few weeks, and the workouts were going great. Like, for me, it's very easy for me to get people to work out how I want them in my gym. Like, it's a one-on-one gym. I'm there. I can get them. He was coming twice a week. But I have to say, he was coming for about 8-9 weeks, and he just was not getting the diet down. So he was getting stronger, lost only a couple of pounds in that amount of time. I felt he should have already been 10-15 pounds lighter, because he wanted to be 20-25 pounds light. He felt he was 25 pounds overweight, but a Wall Street guy, really successful, sharp as could be, smart guy. Then all of a sudden, it's such a bizarre thing. He's a happily married man, so don't take this the wrong way. He runs into like one of his some old girlfriend of his, like in college. He runs into her, and he sees her, and he's and they just ran into something in the city. She was like a yoga instructor, and he just said to me, Mike, she was in incredible shape. I mean, I feel like I looked like I was her father. Like, I look so much older and so much heavier and so much out of shape than her that I said, Mike, I gotta get going on this. Okay. And that did it for him. I have to say, that was like a little bit of a trigger, a little bit of a catalyst for him. And I put him on like just what I'm explaining here, and he did it. And then the weight started falling off. I mean, he didn't even count calories or anything like that, because I really he didn't want to go that far. I said, Mike, okay, I'm going to do it. I'll do the 16-8. He didn't like the no-cal bar. He went with a Quest bar. He didn't want to do a protein shake, because he didn't eat breakfast, had his coffee. 10 o'clock, around 10:30, had a protein bar, the Quest protein bar. For lunch, he started, money is not an issue for this guy. He started ordering, like I wanted, arugula spinach salads with like grilled chicken and mixed vegetables on top and an avocado. had that for lunch. And he was he wasn't as much of a fish guy. He was more like steak and chicken and like, pork. He had that with a couple of vegetables, no alcohol. He would have a drink though, like before dinner, which I recommended him do. He said, if you like to have a drink, he was more of a scotch, like a single malt, one of those single malt scotch drinker type guys. He said, when you get home, have your drink. I also wanted him to use a jigger. A jig. You know what? A jigger, am I saying that right? A jigger, is that the right pronunciation? I know my brother used to be a bartender where you really measure out how much. So for example, like the big side is like a shot and a half. Like give yourself a shot and a half of that single malt that you love. Have your one drink before dinner. Eat your dinner and then no calories. And he's doing like incredibly well. I'm so happy for him because he was going down the wrong turn, but that's what it took for him. He had to run into like an old girlfriend that hasn't seen in like 25 years. That did it, So hey, I always find I also have had people over the years where all of a sudden like they literally go into a high school reunion, or they their child's being bar mitzvahed, or they go into a wedding, and that's the catalyst for them. I just hope for this guy and other clients, sometimes it doesn't stick. Like they get really excited, they get in great shape, and then I've had clients who literally on the day of the wedding or on the day of the bar mitzvah, after losing 20 pounds, eat at the affair and then never stop eating and then gain all the weight back. So, you know what, I don't know why I'm going that deep in the story, but there's always something that triggers someone. For me, I had no choice because, this is my business, like I have to be relatively thin and relatively fit, or who's going to work with me, right? If the trainer, the expert is 30, 40 pounds overweight. So I have no choice. All right, so that's my favorite plan. We'll go over some meals too. Let's see, we got some questions. Here's Nicholas. Okay, Mike, you made me motivated, but my motivation also came from learning about the human body. It's really fascinating. No, I totally agree. I think you were doing it pretty good before, really good before you even started following me too. I know you were doing the fasting and all that. Let's see what Chris has got. Okay, Chris. 3.5 months ago, I was 258 pounds, diabetic, 53-year-old male, right? Now I'm 218, incredible. And how long? 3.5 months, wow. I wanted to get the discipline of my diet down before I started the gym. I think that's fine too, because sometimes, like you say, working out can make you hungry, like we talked about in the past. I just don't know where to start at the gym. I'm doing what to okay, we'll go more into, what I'll do? What I was almost going to do today? That's why that guy popped into my head. I was almost going to do like a case study live stream like that. If you want to, Chris, this would be a fun thing to do. If you want to comment, you can always email me, 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃@gmail.com. Tell me what your goals are, like right now in the gym. And if you want, we could do, like I'll write up a whole like routine, like what I think you should do. But you also have to tell me like not only what your goals are, like what equipment you have access to. Like, do you want? Are you going to go to a gym like a Planet Fitness where they just have everything? Do you want to work out at home? Tell me the like type of equipment, the type of stuff you have. Also, give me an idea of how much time you have to work out and the times of day. Like, do you have time to walk every morning for 30 minutes? Do you have time after work to do a 30-minute workout or in the midday? Give me an idea of all that. And if you want, the next live stream, we'll do like a case study of exactly what I would like you to do. Because that's what I was thinking about doing. I've done that with some of my YouTube videos too. I went over, because people like stories about people. I would tell a story about how this person did lose weight and do really well, and this is exactly what we did. So if you want to do that, Chris, that would be a fun thing to do. We can definitely do that. But I think I may do some live streams like that anyway. And if you want to keep what you're doing more personal, I totally understand. I'll just pick up, and I would use different names. I'll pick one of my old clients, similar to your demographic, like a guy or gal. I'll pick a guy your age. I've worked with thousands of people. I can pick a success story of exactly what they did, and that's what I was going to do today, which is kind of interesting. Let's see what we got. Hey, Rob's here. Rob, how you doing? The trigger typically measures 3/4 of an ounce. Oh, the jigger, that's what it's called. Okay, I hope I got it right. Or 1.5 ounces. There are 2 measurement cups. Yes, true. So I want him to use like just the little bit of the bigger one, because I know he wants a decent drink, and just to do one drink. And that's what he was doing too. Cause I find that with everything, it's interesting, because the case study that I was going to pick tonight with that guy, I also want his wife and him to do like a couple of little things. I find measuring certain things make a tremendous difference. Like, for example, when I scramble up 4 eggs, which I do all the time. Sometimes I don't even scramble them. I just throw the actual eggs, without mixing them up, and I mix them when I cook them. I don't just take extra virgin olive oil. Let me get rid of this in my head. I don't take extra virgin olive oil and just pour it into the pan. And just thinking, for example, every tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil is like 136, 140 calories. You can pour 2 tablespoons and get 280 calories in a blink. Whereas if you just measure out 1 tablespoon and pour it in, it's going to taste just as good. It's going to coat the bottom of the pan. I like to use smaller frying pans for that reason, because it'll fill up the entire pan around the edges and all that. Certain things I would measure. I definitely would measure your oil, even when I'm cooking at night, when I'm sauteing vegetables. When I'm making, even when I put my extra virgin olive oil on my arugula salads during the day. That's one thing I always measure. Tablespoon. I say to my head, 150 calories. You can easily get out of control, especially with drinking too. Even pouring wine. I find definitely with the cocktail, with those, with the stronger alcohols, someone can come home, you pour 3 drinks into a glass, right? You pour a glass of wine is considered 8 ounces. It's considered 5 ounces. You can pour an 8-ounce glass of wine like nothing. Drink half a bottle of wine. You drink a whole bottle of wine in 3 glasses if you get those big guys. Those big glasses. So I would measure alcohol. I would measure oils for sure, and it doesn't take that much work to do it. It will make a tremendous difference. And I think also too, psychologically, there was a study done on plate size, which is really interesting too. I did a video on it years ago, that if you put your food on a smaller plate, psychologically you're gonna eat less because your plate looks fuller. That makes a difference. Definitely wine glass size. Don't go with those monster glasses of wine. I like those, those small glasses of wine, those 5-6 ounce glasses of wine that you get at a pizzeria, because they give you a little Chianti, just like a little glass of wine with a slice of pizza. Smaller glasses and smaller plates definitely make a difference. No question about it. Let's see what we got. Okay, this is Nicholas. One thing is I don't put on weight anymore because I track very well. And that's what's crazy is back in August 22, I had 3,900 calories on a cheat day. Wow, that's a lot. And I'm going to a relative's, didn't gain any weight. Wow, interesting. Yeah, I know if you can track, I wish I can get everyone to track track the calories. Some people just do not want to take the time. And that is one of my core things I always recommend to people, at least at one point in your life, even just for a few weeks. You got to use MyFitnessPal. Years ago, we would just look things up. So it's good to have a general idea of how many calories is on a plate of food. And just in general, like a banana's 100 calories, a baked potato. It's good to generally know. If you count your calories, track your macros, just for a couple of weeks, once in your life, it'll stay with you. It'll be like a lifetime benefit for sure. This was because I was strict the next day. Okay, hey, Hey, Iris from Germany, thanks for showing up. Iris leaves a lot of comments on my channel. I really appreciate it. Thanks for showing up. That's great. Let's see what else we got. Nicholas, I think the most critical part is getting the mental state of mind right before you start going on your fitness journey. I told you have to be ready. I think on my fitness course, I don't think anyone here really needs my fitness course. You guys are a little more advanced. I think that low carb intermittent fasting course, I really love it that I did it, but it's a little bit, it really eases people into intermittent fasting. Like the first day, you're really just eating breakfast late or dinner a little bit early on that. But I had a whole chapter, a number of videos on getting yourself in the right mindset, and also the people around you. I think it's a really big fact. And I have this one rule, it's like the 90% rule, meaning that before you start doing anything, not that you have to be 90%, everyone's going to mess up, but it has to be so easy that you have to be 90% sure that you're going to do it. You know what I mean? Like it can't just, so there were so many times in my gym, like generally when a new client comes to me to my gym, we do this like fitness health evaluation. It could take 90 minutes or longer. And sometimes, sometimes I'd say 50% of the time, after I do the evaluation, it's like a functional evaluation. I go through their diet, I ask their medical history, all that. And then I give them a general idea at the end. I say, okay, now that I have all the information, similar with what I would like to do with Chris, and then I would say, this is the general workout I think I'm going to want you to do and lifestyle strategies. And I'll write it up for you next time you come. But what do you think? Are you 90% sure you can do this? like work out 3 days a week, you know, whatever it might be. And I have to say, 50% of the time they look at me and say, you know, Mike, I don't really know if I can do that. I'm not 90% sure. I mean, I'm going to try to do it. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to give it a try. And then I have to say, you know, let's make it easier. You know, it can't be stressful, and it can't be so like demanding that you're not going to do it. Whatever you decide to do when it comes to your diet, that's when it comes to these fasting strategies. Some people want to jump into it. Let me do a 24-hour fast. You know, let me do a 3-day fast. Let me try an 18. You know, if you're not so confident you're going to do it, don't. I mean, start with a 14-hour fast. Start with a 12-hour fast, right? Ease your way into it, and then the momentum build, and it'll get you mentally ready for it. Let's see. Yes. Casein cream. Is it great? I can render. If you like casein, okay, that's more that slow digesting dairy, right? As opposed to whey. Let's see. Hey, Jeff, thanks for showing up. Can you see my comment? You know, Jeff, this is the first one of yours I've seen, unless I missed one. Let me back scroll. You know, Jeff, no. That's the first one of yours. You know, let me look on the phone. You know, Jeff, sorry, Jeff, that's the only one I got. Is the one. So try to enter it again. You know, like I said, I'm using Restream. I'm on multiple platforms. I know you're on YouTube, but that's your first comment. So maybe try it again. Hopefully I'll see it. Okay, so hey, how you doing? Thanks for showing up. Hey, Mike, I'm a big fan. Atlanta, wow, that's cool. Very cool. From Atlanta, that's great. I'm sure the weather's. I don't know. Is the weather crazy, or the weather's nice in Atlanta? I'd love to live in warm weather all year round. I would love that. Okay, let's see. Can you eat? You know, this is interesting. Can you eat too much dark chocolate? I think I'm pushing the limits of human consumption. You know, I have to say that is one of my trigger foods. Even though trigger foods to me are those foods that you just, once you get them in the house, you can't stop eating them. For me, totally potato chips are mine. My wife knows, my kids know. You put potato chips in front of me, I'm gonna eat the whole bag. So I try not to keep potato chips in my house, very rarely, unless sometimes I know my nephew loves potato chips, so I'll have them for him, and then I might eat some. One of my friends' wives loves potato chips too. They come over, I'll buy some for her, and then I'll eat some. But my other one is dark chocolate. But to me, dark chocolate does have good health benefits. It's high in magnesium, high in fiber, relatively low in sugar. So it's a little bit of an issue with me. I have to say I'm with you. I recently didn't eat any dark chocolate for a week. This is a good story. And I really missed it. If I can just have one row, which is like 90 calories, great. Sometimes I'll have 2 rows, like 180 calories, getting almost a little too high. But I just listened. I had no dark chocolate in the house for like a week. And I bought some yesterday because I listened to 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝘾𝙃 again. You know, the guy I constantly keep on bringing up, the professor from Stanford. And he was talking about dopamine responses. You know, dopamine is the neurotransmitter that puts you in good mood. And he was correlating dopamine like response to different foods. And he said when you eat chocolate, you get a 1.5 increase in dopamine. Cocaine's only 2.5. Amphetamines were like 10. You know, but so I said to myself, I don't know, maybe this dark chocolate isn't so bad. Maybe I should start eating dark chocolate again. So yesterday I bought a bar, and I had just one row. That's what I'm gonna really try to do. And sometimes I was trying to control this dark chocolate thing. So instead of buying the full size bar for a while, I was buying the smaller bars, like the 1 serving bars. But there's so much more money. They cost almost as much as the big bar. So I'm gonna really try to be disciplined. You know what I do sometimes too? Like I'll take the dark chocolate and I'll also put it in the freezer, which definitely slows you down. Similar to Gwen. I know Gwen asked this question a while back. How do you eat yourself slower? I don't want to crack a tooth, with frozen dark chocolate. I find that helps. Even with the refrigerator helps. It makes you eat less. But if you keep it out and it's always there, and also with the dark chocolate, I'm not into the snacking though. Make sure you're having the dark chocolate post meal or pre-meal. Like don't mess up your eating window by like in between meals grabbing this. You don't want those insulin spikes, grabbing a piece of chocolate. Do it after the meal as a treat and try to minimize it. But I know that's an issue. It's an issue with me too. Let's see. We missed a couple of questions here. Okay, this is Nicholas again. Back in 2017, I had tried to get into shape, but I made my relationship with health and fitness toxic. That can happen. I lost the weight, but then I put it all back on because I went too hard. Is not as hard as I thought. Not true yet. The whole thing is finding that ideal mix. It's a delicate balance. of doing too much, doing too little. But I'm so happy. It seems like you really got a good plan here. Hey, my man Steve, thanks for showing. Oh, great stream today. Love that, Steve. Thanks for showing. You know what? Not to say I like it, but this was one of my favorite setups for the stream, because I really do like those two studies, and it's such a simple thing to do. Not eat late at night. It can benefit anyone. I really like it. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. Say hi to Joe and everyone for me. Here's Nicholas. I was so crazed back in 2017 to the point where I would do 4 hours of cardio a day, with skipping up to 10 minutes combined with 1,300. I know. I have to say, more so when I worked in those big box gyms. You see it so much. You don't see it as much in my gym because it's a personal training gym, and the volume of people I see is much less. But when I worked in those big gyms, there was no such thing as a Planet Fitness in the 80s. But when I worked in those big gyms in the 80s, like a 𝘒𝘾𝙏𝘾 or like some of the big chains, then, I would see it nonstop. I would see people literally working at 3-4 hours a day, taking like 3-4 aerobics classes in a row, like just overdoing. And and sometimes people do it for other reasons besides controlling the calories. But that's the big thing too. The cardio definitely helps, no question about it, for reducing body fat, because you are burning calories, right? And there is a little bit of EPOC, exercise post-exergen consumption. That means your metabolism is slightly elevated post-workout if you work hard. But you still want to control your day, control your weight mostly with the amount of food you eat. And I always like working out to create the response. The perk of working out, the extra perk of working out is you are going to burn some calories. But I'd rather you do your aerobics like the live stream I did a couple of weeks ago to create the response, increase your VO2 max, build your aerobic base. I want you to do resistance training to maintain your muscle mass, to increase your muscle mass, to keep your bones, strong, to keep your musculature, you look good, be happy and healthy. Plus, muscle is like, a storage zone for like carbohydrates and good stuff too. So it's really protective in so many different ways, having more muscle. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, so Nicholas said he learned to have a healthy relationship with health and fitness, which is great, so important. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, I like to eat dark chocolate followed by a Coke, followed by a line of Coke. Just kidding. I know, it's really interesting. That would be 2.5 times plus 1.5. That will be a 4 time spike in dopamine, combining those two. That's pretty funny. Okay, what's your thoughts on organic eggs? Are they worth the extra money? Eggs are like 9. I know, it's killing me too, these eggs. But I do think though, I don't know, I wouldn't say organic. I would go with pasture raised. I watched a couple of videos on it, and a buddy of mine is really into this stuff, and he was saying how, even organic eggs, if they say like free range, if they don't say pasture raised, just means that like legally all the farmers, I don't know what you call the people who are raising these eggs, the chickens, all they have to do is open the doors of the barn where the chickens are, where the hens are, even if they don't go outside, and you can say they're free range, even if they're not ranging. And organic is good, but if it says pasture raised, and unfortunately those are the most expensive. I recently bought a dozen eggs for $8.99, just like you're saying. Those chickens, or what are they, chickens or hens, are outside, just roaming around eating grass, not being fed extra grains and all that. Those are the ones you want. And yes, they are more expensive. I have to say, even though Whole Foods, people think Whole Foods is an expensive supermarket, there are certain things at Whole Foods that are so much cheaper. Like there's my Italian grocery in New York, the Chicos, which I love them. They're so nice, but their eggs are $9. I can get them at the Chicos for like $5.99. I mean, at Whole Foods for $5.99, and they're on sale all the time. So sometimes you may have to go to the bigger supermarkets to get better deals on the eggs. Recently, the local grocery was out of eggs. I guess there's some type of a problem with eggs, why they're becoming so much more expensive. But I do think there is a difference, mainly with the omega-3s, like there are healthier fats in those pasture-raised eggs, and you can see it, you can eyeball it. When you get those nice golden, deep-colored yolks, that's where most of the vitamin, that's where the good vitamins in the omega-3s. Omega-3s are those essential fatty acids that you have to get through your diet, that are good. Some people feel they're really good for reducing inflammation, good for brain health. I try to eat a diet really high in omega-3s, from the pasture-raised eggs, from eating salmon all the time, from eating fish pretty much every single day, and I want to increase the omega-3s. And that's even a supplement I might take from time to time too. Is a fish oil type supplement. Okay, so here we go, Jeff. I see one of your questions now. Let's see. Okay. I was saying I opened my eating window at noon on Wednesday. So he has his first meal at noon, close at 6 p.m. the rest of the day, 8 p.m. on workout days. So it's really 16:6, 18:08. Now that sounds good. The only thing that I'm assuming the 8 p.m. is a little borderline late. I mean, I did it for years, so I'm not trying to criticize you, but I'm assuming you're probably not going to sleep. You're giving yourself at least 3 hours before bed. So say you're going to sleep 11 o'clock. I like that schedule. Plus, I mean, I'm sure it's a little different too on a tennis day. I mean, you're depleting so much that you're just filling up your muscles. I'm sure you're not getting a crazy blood sugar spike because you just depleted glycogen, right? You just did a tennis match, which is so much. You're sprinting. You're doing like, it's almost like a HIIT workout that could last an hour. You're depleting stored energy, stored glycogen in your muscle. And, that's what these studies didn't go into. These were obese people. They didn't even talk about their activity level. Once you deplete glycogen, it's like an opportunity to fill it up again. So doing an 8 o'clock, being done 8 o'clock post tennis match or post workout, I don't think would be as bad as if you were just eating 8 o'clock at night, being a sedentary all day, for sure. That's just my own personal thought on that. Let's see, Nicholas. I actually love cardio now, but I think it's because I'm so much lighter and so much more flexible. That sounds good. Okay. Kingston Gray. Hey, thanks for showing up. Mike, thanks for the 200 pounds to 180 video. Oh, good. You like the video. Thanks. Yeah, I think that video I was talking about, you cycle your calories, right? Like one day, 10 times, maybe 2,000. The next day, maybe 1,800 to minimize metabolic adaptation. I think that's the video you're talking about. Today I started with the 60-day. Oh, that sounds great. Check back into me. First of all, I go live. I'm going to be live every Sunday, 11:30, somewhere around that. Check back in with me. Even if you can't make the next live, I'm curious to see how you're going to do. I think you're going to do great. And if you can do it even, I forget if I talked about early time restricted eating. If you can do like I talked about in this slide, like this whole thing, like the 2MAD with the protein shake and everything, that will work into that as well. I'm not sure if I talked about it. And I got so many videos. Sometimes I feel like my brain's not working. I must have like 600 videos on YouTube, like 1,000 videos. I don't even remember some of the videos I made, which is maybe that's not a good sign. Okay, let's see what Jeff said. I don't want to miss. This is Jeff again. Okay, I work out until 5, so I do my dumbbell workout when I get home. Okay, and then I eat after that, so I don't always take it till 8. But if I give myself more time, and that sounds good. No, I think that's great. Yeah, just do the best you can to take in those calories as early as possible. And this has been a thing for me too. It wasn't easy for me to do it, but I finally got it down. You see, it's easier for me now to do it because both my kids are away at college, and it's just me and my wife, and she works from home now. So she's home. Years ago, she would get home from work at 7 o'clock. My kids, we would be eating much later. So a lot of it has to do with your life. But now I like it, and I have to say I'm also sleeping better, taking in my calories earlier too, which has like they say, if you don't get a good night's sleep, you're insulin resistant the next day, which is so crazy. You can take someone like myself, who I think I'm very insulin sensitive. I work out all the time. I eat a relatively low carb diet. I do all this fasting. If I only sleep like 3-4 hours one night, I will wake up the next day and I will be insulin resistant. Meaning that if I had like a big breakfast, even though I wouldn't do that, but say I had a big breakfast, and most people do want to eat when they're sleep deprived, it makes them hungry, and I eat a big meal, my body will not be able to lower blood sugar anywhere near as effectively as if I had a good night's sleep, because I'm temporarily insulin resistant. That means my cells are just not responding to that insulin, which normally I would store away those excess carbs in my muscle and liver. I store away that excess body fat in adipose tissue, which is good. It's protective. If you would take my blood sugar after a meal, if I'm only sleeping 2 or 3 hours, my blood sugar will be elevated, which is really crazy when you think about it. That's why sleeping, another one of the singular best things you can do for your health is get a good night's sleep. Do whatever you got to do. My sleep cycle was messed up because we did a lot of traveling this year. I think I mentioned we went to Hawaii on a business trip with my wife. Then I was in Italy visiting my daughter. She did a semester abroad in Rome, which was incredible. But my sleep cycle was all messed up, and I was taking some melatonin, which definitely helps. But I find melatonin makes me a little groggy. I can literally take 0.5 milligram of melatonin, sleep a little better, and feel it a little bit. But if I took 2 or 3 milligrams of melatonin, I'd be like just out the next day. It's hard for me to even wake up. Okay, let's see what we got here. Nicholas, whatever I eat, I get this weird sensation in my arm, like a tiny sharp pain. Only been happening recently, but I have noticed that. Like, I know, I mean, you're like me, Nicholas. You're very conscious of your own body and every sensation you possibly can get. I wouldn't be over concerned. Obviously, if it persists and it becomes a real thing, check with your doctor, talk to your parents about it. But we all get these little pains and this and that. I wouldn't worry about something like that if it's a tiny, sharp pain. Well, try not to be over conscious of every single like pain and thing you get in your body, as long as it doesn't persist. It's when I trained this cardiologist once, trained him for years, and he would say to me, we were talking about heart, because I'm always, I'm into the cardiovascular system, and he was talking about, I used to get this thing where my heart maybe would skip, blip from time to time, and he said to me, Mike, when it comes to your heart, I've been doing this for he was an older guy, like 40 years. If anything with your heart lasts less than 1 minute, I wouldn't even worry about it. And I'm not giving you guys medical advice. Always check with your doctor. But it was, I like how he said that. He said, your heart's gonna skip here and there. I mean, if anything lasts for less than 60 seconds, I wouldn't be worried about it. Which I always liked him saying that. But check with your doctor. Don't go by what I just said there. I go to bed between 10 and 11. That's good. So, see, to me, 8 to 10 is a little tight, Jeff. Like if you ate at 8 and then went to sleep at 10, because I know you're taking in proteins, you're eating good, that's a little tight. So on those days, try to eat a little bit earlier. And 11 o'clock is great. Then you got 3 hours, which I think is really good. But 8 to 10 is a little tight. Okay. Oh, this is I eat fermented food before bed. Fresh sauerkraut, very low calories, and a blast of probiotics for the gut. Thought, I used to do things like that because I am a big believer in fermented food. Like I eat that Bubba's brand of sauerkraut like regularly. I eat pickles, and these are really true fermented pickles, not just vinegar pickles where it's made the old-fashioned way. I also love Greek yogurt, fermented food, and I used to do maybe things like that. I stopped. I would try to stop. I know sauerkraut's almost a free food. Right, meaning there's almost no calories in sauerkraut, and it is fermented. I don't know. I have to think about that a little bit more. It's probably one of the better things to eat if you're going to be eating right before bed. I mean, if you think it's a psychological thing that helps you get a better night's sleep, maybe I would stick with it. But it's still circadian rhythm. You're still digesting, fibers. I probably would try to do it earlier if you can. But that's a tough one. Oh, great. We'll do. Yeah, I can't wait to see how you're doing. How it goes for you. That's great. Since everyone's here, let me also, I always like to do this. Let me pull in some of my recent meals, what I've been eating lately. Hey, like this. Yeah, I'm sure you guys know these are like my go-to salads. I make these salads like multiple times during the week. This is another thing I'm a big believer in. There's even studies on this too, saying that people who eat relatively the same foods, as long as it's a healthy, well-balanced, diet, of the food that you're picking, and not if you're eating like the same junk food every day, are generally thinner, and it just makes your life so much simpler. Like no matter what, if you come to my house, I always have arugula and spinach salads, those containers of it, because I love arugula, high in nitrates, which convert to nitric oxide, which is so good for blood flow and just opening everything up, can lower blood pressure potentially, do so many great things. So I always have arugula and spinach salad in the house. I always have avocados. We talked about this last time, Chris, on Friday night with the live stream. Either they're frozen in the freezer, they're in the refrigerator, whenever on the sale I load up on them. I always have an avocado. Always have those pasture-raised eggs. And you can almost see, I think you can see in this pic, you see the color of these yolks, how golden they are. When you buy those cheaper eggs, unfortunately, they just don't have those omega-3s in them. I always have blueberries or blackberries or strawberries in the house. And I think this is, what's that? I think it must be grilled chicken. Generally whenever I'm making chicken or making anything, I always make extra for leftovers. So this is just, I make this salad 5 minutes, at like no time. I boil, I always have like a dozen eggs in my refrigerator that I boil from like earlier in the week. I can make this, and this is also extra virgin olive oil, EVOO, like that I measure out, and balsamic vinegar. And I've talked about this before too. I like the balsamic vinegar because balsamic vinegar is just like an apple cider vinegar is high in acetic acid, and it actually slows the release in blood sugar post-meal. It's almost like a metformin, a little bit. I know, I forget who said they were taking berberine, like a berberine, cinnamon, apple cider vinegar, balsamic vinegar is really good to take when you're eating, or right before the meal or right after the meal, because it does help control blood sugar. So to me, this is just an ideal meal, right? You got I probably got 50, 60 grams of protein there, the fiber, high in fiber from the avocado, from the arugula, get the omega-3s from those pasture-raised eggs, blueberries, antioxidants, flavor. I mean, this is just ideal. like perfect eating. Let's see what Jeff's got. Okay. It became much easier for me to not eat at night when I took your recommendation for the Pellegrino. Oh, that's great. You know, the Pellegrino waters, I always recommend Pellegrino water because it's high in minerals. I think, like I said, I think a liter of Pellegrino has about 50 milligrams of magnesium, where the adequate intake of magnesium is 400 milligrams a day, which most people don't come close. So it's a great way to get magnesium and you're hydrating yourself. Plus you get a little other electrolytes too. You get a little, you get everything in this Pellegrino. I love Pellegrino. Okay, let me see what else Jeff got. Okay. Now I have Pellegrino with lime juice, which is great after dinner, and really get hungry after that. That sounds great. That's another thing that helps control blood sugar, which I've been doing, is the lemon juice. So yeah, I don't want to confuse you too, everyone. So those are things you can do late at night. You know, like you can take some lemon juice, you know, which is only going to lower blood sugar, I think, and squeeze it into some Pellegrino or some apple cider vinegar. These are like just no calorie things. That's why the sauerkraut is, I can't give you a definitive answer. Because I know the lemon juice and apple cider vinegar, to me, I wouldn't even count that as calories or anything. The sauerkraut's kind of borderline for me. I'm going to look into that sauerkraut thing a little bit. I doubt I can find a study on it, but let me think about it a little bit more, the sauerkraut late at night. Okay, let's see what else. Hey, thanks for showing up. This is great. Okay, no on exercise. How many years do you do dumbbell flies? Because you quit them due to issue. Do you still do them sometimes, or they're out forever? For me, unfortunately, they're out forever, and I'll tell you why. This is before my kids were born, so my kids are in their early, like 21, 22, right? So the last time I went skiing, I actually snowboarded with my wife, was in Vail. I took this crazy fall on this steep hill. I put my hand out, heard a big pop when I landed, but I braced myself with my arm, and unfortunately, I tore my labrum. Labrum is that cartilage ring around your shoulder. And I slightly dislocated my shoulder. My typical pattern is I ignore it, get back on. Actually, my wife also broke her ankle on that trip. Crazy trip. It was interesting. So this is the same day too, but I was able to, you know, when I was younger, I'd hurt myself, I ignore it. So I remember going to meet my wife, and we're skiing. I'm snowboarding, she's skiing. She falls down, and she said, Mike, I think I hurt my ankle. At first I said, just. I said, just get up. Come on. I saw you fall. It's nothing. Turns out it wasn't nothing. Just like, you know, we had a cool ski patrol. There's a little handsome guy comes up. I think it was like a Scandinavian guy, like tall guy, puts her in a sled. He skied down so fast with her in the sled. I'm a good snowboarder. I couldn't even keep up with him. He was like an Olympian, the guy. So then we took my wife to the hospital, and they said, yeah, x-ray, you fractured your ankle. It's interesting because then my wife actually got pregnant with the broken ankle. It was just a really crazy time. So I don't know why it just reminded me. That just was a crazy trip. So ever since then, I get back from my trip, I ignore the pain. I'm bench pressing 275 pounds like I normally would do back then. Like, I'm young back then, and I really messed up my shoulder. I wound up with like chronic tendonitis, supraspinatus tendonitis, because I didn't have the stability with that torn labrum. And ever since then, I did like just do flies back then in pain for years, and barbell bench pressed in pain for years, until years later I had an MRI, and they said, yeah, you know, you're getting you got a bone spur now, and then I stopped. I mean, I do a tremendous amount of internal external rotation and band work, and my shoulder's feeling pretty good, but when you use a dumbbell for a fly, the shearing force is so great, you know, when your arms are at your side. And what I mean by shearing force is when like the bones are going in a different direction. You know, you have the acetabulum, your scapular humerus into the scapula. When you're out here, when your arms are so long, not only is the pec like pulling your shoulder in, but it wants to slide. I can't do it. Unfortunately, I had to give it up forever. But I can do like cable crossover. I know you left a comment. I know you don't have a cable machine at home. But luckily I do have a cable machine at my gym where I can do a cable crossover because it's more stable. Like a cable crossover when my arms are out wide because the gravity is coming from the side, there's no tension. As my hands come in, when my hands are close together, that's when the movement's the most difficult. And I'm almost like almost like packing my shoulder. I can do cable flies really good. I even recently tried a little Smith machine barbell bench pressing, and my shoulder felt pretty good because I've been rehabbing it for 15 years. Every single time I train my upper body, I do internal, external rotation. I do a number of different band type things that make my rotator cuff as strong as possible. I think my subscap, infraspinatus, supraspinatus, these are all the rotator cuff muscles, are really, really strong. And I think it's stabilizing my shoulder to some degree. And I don't stretch my shoulder. This is what a buddy of mine who's a chiropractor, Dr. Brown, I loved him. He told me 20 years ago, because my shoulder used to slip out slightly. He said, Mike, stop stretching it. Let the capsule tighten up. I even went to a physical therapist who messed me up, who was cranking on my shoulder, trying to reposition the head of my humerus. He was trying to stretch out the posterior capsule. It's like, well, just so you guys know, guys and gals know, all joints are encapsulated, meaning that it's not like when you look at the skeleton, like the skeleton behind me. Let me see if I can pull it up in this picture. See my skeleton behind me? Like you see the shoulder blade right there? You know, it's not like, that's not how it looks in real life. You know, when you open up, when I took a cadaver course, everything is like encapsulated. It's almost like an airtight, like watertight capsule. And he felt that, you know, the rear part of my capsule was really tight. So he was kept on pushing on my humerus to try to stretch out the posterior and like the capsule to give me more room. Meanwhile, he destabilized my whole shoulder. Plus, I had the torn labrum, so I would lay down and my shoulder would slip out. I was so annoying. This is 15 years ago. So I stopped stretching my shoulder, and I only do active stretching. What I mean by active stretching is contractual stretching. Okay, look at it like this. You see my arms over my head, so I'm contracting. The main muscle that's doing this is serratus anterior, which attaches to your rib cage, and then to the anterior surface, the front part of your scapula. And it helps you do shoulder flexion. Now, what I could do is I can take my arm, right? I can go against the wall, lean into it, and force my shoulder into deeper flexion, right? And just force this motion. And yes, I will be stretching out everything here. Or I can contract into that position, meaning that I can use my own musculature, hold my hand here, and push into it and strengthen that position, that end range position. That's how I like to stretch. So when it comes to my shoulder, even my body, I'm creating like mobility with stability, as opposed to just forcing myself into a position that I can't control. And I used to stretch like crazy back then, like, oh, let me fix my shoulder, let me stretch it out. And once I stopped doing that and just let everything tighten up a little bit, my shoulder felt so much better. Just keep that in mind. I've done some videos about this years ago too. I wasn't sure if too many people are interested. I even found that the video I did about the live stream I did on Friday night about like how to train your biceps. I know Chris enjoyed it. He was there, which I really appreciate. I don't know if people really liked it because it was kind of technical with the biomechanics of training the arm. So I don't know. Let's see. Okay, let's see what Nicholas had to say here. Hey, Mike. Would you say that a 48-hour carnivore diet switch is just as effective as autophagy than a 48-hour fast because you're cutting out all carbs? Or is that incorrect? You know, I probably wouldn't call it the same because, okay, if people don't know, autophagy is one of the things that happens that gets upregulated when you're fasting, when you're working out. It's somewhat of a never-ending process, but it's basically when the body like recycles weak and damaged like organelles. It's like a good thing. People who are into longevity like to fast for autophagy. But when autophagy is up, it gets a little confusing. mTOR, which is like growth signaling, meaning that you eat a meal, right? You know, your proteins and everything are running through your bloodstream. You go into like a growth phase. Like all the systems that help the body, you know, it's like, you know, anabolic, you're growing, is signaled. When you have no food in your system, the opposite happens, like AMPK, the sirtuins, all the things, like you go into repair mode. So like when you're eating, you're in growth, mTOR, right? When you're fasting or recovering, it's like AMPK, you're like autophagy, like you're fixing things. See, the carnivore diet, it's a little confusing because even though you're not getting those spikes in insulin, carnivore diet means that you're only eating meat. You are getting very, very high protein, which is going to stimulate mTOR. So I don't think you're going to get as much autophagy if that's your goal on the carnivore diet. It's a nice thing to do if you just want to do a low carb day, a low carb few days. I do it from time to time. Like it's funny, when I went to Hawaii, I didn't really want to gain weight, but I wanted to enjoy myself there. And I had incredible fruit in Hawaii when I went there. I was eating papaya. So I did like a carnivore fruit diet, like what Paul Saladino does. I eat like as much, I was eating bacon for breakfast, pineapple, watermelon, papaya. It was like incredible. And then I have a whole thing of bacon or like pork, and I stuck with that the whole week I was there. I didn't gain any weight, and I felt really good. I really liked it. But obviously, it's not true carnivore because I was getting a decent amount of carbs from the fruit, but to keep my fiber up and everything. Hey Gwen, thanks for showing up. Yeah, sorry about Friday. I just did that impromptu live stream. You probably get notified. Let's see. Okay. Well, there we go. I lost 2.6 pounds since January 1. I've only had one bad binge, so I'm doing better. Wonderful. I love hearing that. This is going to be your year, Gwen. You're going to do it. You're going to be at your ideal weight before you know it. That's great. Okay. That's okay. Is it only the right shoulder? Yeah, it's only the right shoulder. Left shoulder, no problem. So if you really have no issues with your shoulder, I think you can do flies. I would do them a little bit lighter, and I probably would do two things. I would definitely do continuous tension, and I wouldn't go crazy deep. I mean, first of all, I would test your active range, meaning that I would go like this. See how far your arms can go back under your own contraction. Make a mental note, okay, this is where my elbows are, right? So when you're doing your flies, don't let the weight of the dumbbells take you beyond your active range. See, because it's easy. You put 30-pound dumbbells in your hand, you can drag your elbows, and just, even though it might be good for developing your pecs, that extra motion, that extra range of motion, it's too rough on the shoulders. You lose the angle, So don't go too deep. Go relatively light. And then on the way up, don't go all the way up because it's balanced. Meaning that when your hands are together with a dumbbell fly, because of gravity, just think you're laying back, you have no tension here. Stop about here. So just stay in the most difficult range of motion of the movement and go light and see how you feel. And definitely keep on doing what I'm talking about. Do all that rotator cuff work and just make your rotator cuff, like crazy strong. We're gonna go over some other meals too. Let me get some of the questions. Let me get rid of this one. Okay, let me get rid of this. Is that gone? Oh, how come I can't get rid of that one? There we go. Let's see what Jeff's got here. Okay, I'm 46. And my favorite exercise is lateral dumbbell raise. I like that. A lateral dumbbell raise, if you don't know, it's just out to your side. I love them. Is that likely to cause a problem? Sorry, not trying to sound paranoid, just thinking about what you said about your own arms. That's a really safe movement, I think, a dumbbell lateral raise. The only thing I would say, there's your acromion process, your AC joint where your acromion hits your clavicle, AC joint right there. And your supraspinatus does sneak in right there too. That's one of your rotator cuff muscles. For me, one of the reasons why bench pressing bothers me is I also have like bench press shoulder, meaning that I did so much bench pressing too heavy for most of my life. And Steve will know this, that I got a little thickening. I got some calcification, some bone spurs in my shoulder. There's not too much room for that supraspinatus underneath your acromion. So if you're going really, really high with your lateral raises, you could possibly pinch that a little bit. I would say don't go too high. But another similar to the flies, what can make a lateral raise so much harder, and you can keep the weight relatively light, is not going down all the way. Like for example, if you're doing a lateral raise, but then your arms are going completely down to your side, there's no tension in the first 20, 30 degrees of a lateral raise. Stay in the hard part and go light. Use like 8 pounds, 7.5, 10 pounds. And I think you'll have no issues with your shoulder. Okay. I never get an accident. He never had an accident full like that. But the wear to decades of dumbbell flies makes my shoulder tendons protest the last few years. Yeah, I don't think there's anything like miraculous about a dumbbell fly that you have to do it. You can develop your chest. Like I know you know what you're doing. You probably can do these videos like I'm doing the videos. You've been working out like me your whole life. You do your barbell work. your dumbbell work. Flat bench. You don't necessarily need those flies. But I know you don't have. If you want to just buy a set of bands, just those spree bands, and with the harness in your house, you can probably simulate a cable crossover with those bands and get a nice little pump out of it too. If you like that fly motion, I don't think it'll bother your shoulder. So we got Jeff. Okay. Right. Let's see. Okay, I have done 40 pound for 20 reps floor flies. Well, that's pretty good, but it gives me issues regularly. Even 30 pounds gives me issue. Yesterday, the right shoulder tendon in the front. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. I think I would go lighter if you want to stick with those flies, maybe 20 pounds, and try to just stay in that arc like I was talking about. But why don't you buy a pair? You'll use it for so many things. Those spree bands. I'm not sure in your country do they have Spree, but any band, I think you can get so much use out of a band because it's really like having a cable, high, low, mid-range cable. There's so many things you can do it. I like holding it and just doing my Rid-Delts with it. I mean, I think bands are a great thing to have. I even heard Sylvester Stallone recently. I follow him. I love his new show, actually. It just ended on Paramount. He plays as like gangster guy. It's a great show. And I just heard him saying, like talking about weightlifting. I've heard him say this in the past too. He was comparing himself to Arnold Schwarzenegger and how Arnold has all these like, you know, orthopedic issues and he's like stiff and blah, 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 where he's pretty agile still, Stallone. And Stallone says, yeah, you know, I really just, if you're just lifting weights your whole life, things are going to hurt. You know, like he does a lot more band work, a lot more cable work, a lot of other things that he's incorporated into his training in the last 20 years that really makes his joints and everything feel better. I know I'm the same way. I hate to give up a movement that I love to do. My big thing is my knee. You know, like I can't squat. Like I would love to squat and do things like that. But hey, you know, you got to just work around and do the best you can. Let's see what we got here. Okay, I don't do lateral raises anymore either. Used to do them for 25 years. Can't do them now. Too much crunching, clicking. Yeah, I know. It gets tough at times. So how high is 2i above the shoulder? I would say below 90 degrees, a little below parallel. I mean, I would do this. If you put your hand here on your AC joint, as soon as you feel like your scapula is really rotating, then I would stop. I would say a little below parallel to the ground would be a good example. Okay, so, and I even have some, I think I have some videos on that too, maybe on the YouTube channel in my like short video exercise group. I'll see if I can pull one and put it in the group tomorrow, Jeff, for you. Okay, so there's another one meal. Actually, a couple of days this week, I had a baked potato, which I love. I love baked potatoes. I generally don't want to eat that many carbs at night, but it was so good. So this is like a nice big piece. My wife went to the theater at night, so I cooked myself. I made a nice, this is probably like a 12-ounce piece of wild-caught salmon. I did it Cajun style, not Cajun, like curry style. I put a lot of curry powder on it, which I love. Then I had a nice baked white potato and a couple of like sweet potatoes. I love it. You know, that particular day, I think I posted, I ate very, very low carb earlier in the day. I think all I had, I didn't even do my blueberries or anything like that. I think I just had scrambled eggs with an avocado. Where normally I would have some fruit or maybe I'd have some dark chocolate, like I was saying. I think I didn't eat any dark chocolate that day, so I still wanted a little bit carbs in the evening, a little fiber, so with the baked potato. So I love that meal. That was a great meal. It's funny though, now that I had a baked potato a couple times, I feel like eating a baked potato every single time I eat, which I'm going to try not to. There's another typical lunch that I had this week, which I love. So I grill my own chicken breast, like I say, measure the extra virgin olive oil, there's garlic powder, peppers. You know, I like that real men's salt, you know, the mineral salt. Arugula salad, you know, I always want to put color in. I always wanted different colors all the time. That's why even with the baked potato, if you noticed, the sweet potatoes like that orange red and the baked potatoes white, because I always want to go two different colors. That's why I didn't have two white potatoes, right? I wanted the red, all the vitamins, minerals, nutrients from like a sweet potato, and then I wanted the white from the white. And I did the same thing here. So even though like the avocado and the arugula is green, I still wanted some red and yellow peppers. Just, it's good to eat a variety of colors, you know, really. You get all your different stuff there. I think that's everything. Is that all my meals I picked? Maybe I only picked 3 meals. All right, well, there you go. Oh, this was good. I really like how the live stream went today. We've been going an hour of 18. Any more questions, guys? Anything about fitness, diet, weight loss, anything you want to talk about before I run? I didn't do my walk yet today. And actually, it's been relatively mild in New York. I love it. I've been able to walk. So this morning, I'm still fasted. So I'm probably, you know, it's 1 o'clock. I kind of got messed up. I should have had my protein bar before the fast, but I planned on doing that before the live stream, but I had trouble with the sound and I got all out of sorts. So I'm going to probably eat my no-cal bar right after this. So I'm getting a late eating start today. And then I'm going to take a nice, probably like 100-minute walk. It's been taking me about 100 minutes now to do my walk along the Hudson River. And I've still been doing my backwards walking, which I love. So out of 100 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, I'll be walking backwards. And I have to say, there's a whole group of people now who are walking backwards because they've seen me walk backwards, which is really incredible. I get so many comments. It's funny. Dogs look at me strange. They look and say, why is this guy walking backwards? You know, it's kind of funny. They can't kind of grab it. Okay, here's Biff. Okay. I'm all over the place, always going back and forth between wanting to do 1 meal a day, OMAD. That stands for 1 meal a day, 2 MAD, fasting, keto, carnivore, just healthy and moderate. It sucks. Gonna try 2 MAD protein shake. I like that, Biff. Try that. I think that's the best of both worlds. See, I like OMAD, but once again, OMAD to me is more of a short-term strategy, meaning that you're not going to be able to consume enough protein, I don't think, in just one meal a day. I think you're definitely going to need to supplement either like a protein shake with the OMAD. But I think it's a good short-term strategy. If you want to just quickly lose some weight, do it for a few weeks. I also, you can also do OMAD like intermittently, like once or twice a week, like some low-calorie days. I think that's good. When it comes to like the style of eating, keto, carnivore, this and that, I mean, you can experiment with all these things, but I think, I love how I eat and how I recommend people to eat. Like the 3 things you got to keep an eye on, I always say, is calories. You got to keep an eye on calories. When you do these fasting strategies like 𝑘𝙊𝙏𝘾𝙃 with a protein shake, you're probably not going to be eating too much. It just puts people in a calorie deficit or at maintenance calories without like driving themselves crazy. And then, and the other thing is you want to make sure you eat an adequate amount of protein, right? Like you can multiply your body weight by 0.7. The more accurate way of doing it is to go like 0.9 grams times like lean body weight. You have to keep calories under control. You have to eat an adequate amount of protein. And if you want to make sure you're eating good, healthy food, throw fiber into it. Try to eat 35, 40 grams of fiber a day. What that does is that it forces you to eat vegetables, to eat like fruits like avocado, to eat some fruits. It makes it simpler. So if you're just keeping an eye on calories, whether you're counting calories or just doing a 𝑘𝙊𝙏𝘾𝙃, right, only eating 2 meals a day, then you're making sure you're eating enough protein, right, because you want to maintain muscle mass, you want to increase your muscle mass, or when you get older, you don't want all those issues with bones and skin, And then if you're eating a good amount of fiber, it makes you not eat junk food, because if you're eating junk food, you're going to be eating too many calories, So if you did those 3 things, like my calorie deficit, 10 times your body weight, maintenance calories, 15 times your body weight. Let's say you want to stay the same, 15 times your body weight, that's your calories. Protein, 0.9 times body, 0.7, and then eat 35, 40 grams of fiber a day. You'll kill it. You're going to do great. Okay. Agreeing on letting go of favorite exercises being hard. It is. Push-ups are, in my opinion, already fine for upper body. I agree. Exercise along with 1-arm dumbbell rows like those 2. It's that addiction of certain. I know it's hard to give them up, especially if you've been doing them your whole life. And sometimes you associate being younger. That's what I associate myself being young. When I was squatting 405 pounds, I mean, I just felt like invincible. And now that I can't do it, it's upsetting. But I hear you. That's good. All right, guys, I'm gonna bolt. I really appreciate everyone showing up. It sounds great. And Chris, if you want me to do that thing, it will be great. Otherwise, I'll just pick one of my clients. Maybe next week we'll do like a case study. Looks like you can. Yeah, I can see all your comments again now, Jeff. That's great. I'm not looking at the phone. They're coming up, which is great. At least, yeah, the last one you left was so how high is too high above shoulder. So I hope that was the last one before this. All right, guys, thanks for showing up. This was great. I really enjoyed it today. Thanks, Steve, for showing up. I know it's early there for you, and Nicholas, I know it's late, and Viv, everyone, it's Chris. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, Gwen. I'm glad you're on track. That's good. And I'll see you guys next Sunday. I'm going to stick with this schedule. We'll go with like maybe 11:30ish, like somewhere around that on Sundays. All right, take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for showing up. I really appreciate it.